Did you know that the heart can continue beating even when it is disconnected from the body? This is because the heart has its own electrical or conduction system. The heart's electrical system allows 5 quarts of blood to be pumped through the body every minute. While doing this, the heart moves oxygen and nutrients to the tissues and removes carbon dioxide and waste from the body. Today I am going to be explaining the heart's conduction and circulatory systems. On this first slide, I have some main points of the right atrium, which I'm going to be explaining to you. First, I'll explain how the right atrium receives oxygen-poor blood from the body and then pumps it into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. The right atrium is the upper right chamber of the heart and sits on top of the right ventricle. This chamber receives all the oxygen-poor blood from the body through the inferior and superior vena cava. Veins carry blood into the heart, while arteries carry blood out of the heart. The right atrium houses the first part of the heart's conduction system, the sinoatrial or SA node, and the atrioventricular or AV node. The SA node is located in the upper section of the right atrium next to the superior vena cava and is made up of pacemaker cells that set the pace for the heart. The AV node is located in the lower area of the chamber next to the atrioventricular valve and receives electrical signals from the SA node. Once the right atrium is filled with blood and the SA and AV nodes receive electrical signals, the chamber then contracts and pushes the oxygen-poor blood into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve is named in reference to the way that it is formed. The tricuspid valve has 3 flap-like cusps that close to keep blood from coming back into the chamber. On this next slide, you'll see some main points from the right ventricle that I'm going to talk about now. The right ventricle pumps oxygen-poor blood into the lungs through the pulmonary valve. The right ventricle is the lower right chamber of the heart and sits under the right atrium. This chamber pumps the blood through the pulmonary valve and into the pulmonary artery to the lungs. The right ventricle houses the second part of the heart's conduction system, the bundle of His and the Purkinje fibers. The bundle of His runs down the inner side of the atrium and receives electrical signals from the AV node. The Purkinje fibers run on the outside of the atrium and receive electrical signals from the bundle of His. This makes the ventricles contract while the atrium relaxes. That gives you the bump bump sound in the heart. Once the right ventricle is filled with blood and the electrical signals through the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers fire, the oxygen-poor blood is sent through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary trunk. The pressure from the pulmonary trunk closes the valve to prevent blood from going back into the chamber. In the lungs, the blood is oxygenated through the capillary bed and is pushed into the left side of the heart. On this next slide, you'll see the main points of the right atrium, which I'll be talking about. The left atrium. The left atrium receives the oxygen-rich blood from the lungs and pumps it to the left ventricle through the mitral valve. The left atrium is the upper left chamber of the heart and sits on top of the left ventricle. This chamber receives all of the oxygen-rich blood from the pulmonary veins. The left atrium does not house any part of the heart's conduction system, as the SA and AV node simultaneously fire over to the left atrium. Once the left atrium is filled with oxygen-rich blood, it passes through the left atrioventricular valve, or the mitral valve, into the left ventricle. This valve can also be called the bicuspid valve because it contains 2 flap-like cusps that keep the blood from going back into the chamber. Finally, I have the left ventricle, and here are some main points that I'll be talking about. The left ventricle pumps oxygen-rich blood through the aortic valve to the rest of the body. The left ventricle is the lower left chamber of the heart and sits under the left atrium. The left ventricle is also triggered simultaneously with the right ventricle through the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. Once the left ventricle is filled with blood, the electrical signals are sent and the blood is pumped through the aortic valve and through the aortic arch to the rest of the body through arteries. The aortic valve works just like the pulmonary valve in that it is a bicuspid valve, meaning it has two flap-like cusps. The pressure from the aortic arch also closes the valve so that the blood cannot go back into the chamber. On this slide, you can see some physiology of all of the chambers and valves I've explained to you in this speech. As you can tell, the heart is a very complex organ and is one of the most basic functions of life. The physiology that I have explained to you today comes down to three key components: structure, electricity, and plumbing. Thank you.